I can't tell you how many folks come to PFS and their current financial advisor has not had one conversation with them about Medicare supplements, long-term care, or legacy and estate planning. It's not the boogeyman. Individuals bundle every financial advisor into that one category, but in reality, there's three separate aspects of who a financial advisor is and the value that they bring to the table. Our job primarily is to provide absolute clarity to our prospective clients. Custom design, custom build, and then custom manage that particular client's goals and objectives. Money in the right hands has the incredible, extraordinary power to do incredible, extraordinary things in the world.
Welcome to Beyond the Briefcase. This is our 5th episode, and we're going to see who's up today. Who is this gentleman sitting across the table from me? So we have Vince Virga. Vince is a financial advisor and an author. He's the founder of PFS Wealth Management Group, and he's the author of The Smart Approach. With over 30 years of experience, Vince helps clients protect and grow their wealth through strategies and that minimize risk, fees, and taxes through his team approach. He's a Naples-based advisor and national speaker. He's passionate about simplifying money and empowering others to plan with purpose. So we're going to see what's on the agenda today, but I actually have his latest book, which is the 2nd edition of The Smart Approach. It's a 5-step process to life, leadership, and investing. He's going to tell us toward the end how everyone can get a copy of this book. So thanks for joining us today, Vince.
Well, thank you for having me there today, Matt.
We'll get this giant briefcase out of here. And so tell us, did I get that right on your background? I know you started in New Jersey, right?
My background is quite complex, actually. I'm the product of literally 2 off-the-boat immigrant parents from Sicily, Italy. My parents, I think it's probably, what I tell folks is to get an understanding of who I am, it's probably a good idea for me to tell you a little bit about where I came from, i.e. my parents. So Mom and Dad, I guess back in late 50s, got on a ship, 13-day voyage from Italy with a few $100s in their pockets, not a word of English, to come here to this great country to settle in. They settled in New Jersey and raised me along with my brother and my sister in a little town called Bayonne, New Jersey. My dad, he was an incredible man. 4th grade education from his little village in Sicily. Came here, not a word of English, couldn't read, couldn't write. And by the time he left this incredible earth way too early, which is another reason why I'm passionate about helping individuals with their finances, is this man was building some of the most incredible condominiums, shopping centers, and homes. Here's the kicker. He was reading blueprints better than some college-educated engineers and architects. Think about that. My mom, she too left this world way too early. Never learned to read, never learned to write, never learned to drive, and raised 3 of us, and including myself, the middle child.
And in Jersey, public transportation is enough, so you don't have to drive, right?
That's correct. And there was, other than an occasional bus, we always walked. Everything was in walking distance for us. So, yeah, it was. I thought it's important that I share a little bit about my parents. So I, in high school, met my future wife, Camille. She and I met in 1984, just before the start of my senior year in high school, and we've been together ever since and married in 1992. So that's quite some time together. We've got 2 wonderful children, Jeremy, who's 30, and Rachel, who's 23 and just graduated NYU. Tish,
Nice.
She is an aspiring actress, and there's a little story of visualization. We can, if time allows it, I'll share it with you, and you'll just remind me later.
Okay. Well, so we're talking today about the mindset behind money and how purpose drives profit. So in terms of that, tell us and our listeners, what's a major misconception about wealth management or financial advisors?
Yeah, wonderful question. And I think it's important that your viewers understand We look at it from a pyramid standpoint. At the bottom of the pyramid is what we call your traditional broker, where you establish a relationship with one of the many institutional firms. You give them X amount of money, and then you make the selection. This is kind of early on in the phase of investing in the market, right?
Okay.
You make your investment choices. And then as time goes by and your accounts hopefully over time start to grow, then you nurture into the second phase where you have a traditional or a typical financial advisor. And that financial advisor, you will typically pay them for their advisory services, and they'll build a portfolio model for you. The tippy top of that pyramid, which typically you have about 1% of what I call comprehensive holistic advisory firms, is folks that not only focus on that investment or portfolio management, but what we call, the total of the 5 pillars of one's financial and legacy life. Meaning, pillar number 1 is income planning, making sure that you have an income plan in place that will allow for you to have sustainable and reliable sources of income that neither you nor your significant other can ever outlive. Pillar number 2 is making sure that if your willingness to be in the market exists, then making sure it's fee and risk efficient. Third is tax planning, making sure that anything and everything you do with regards to your investments are tax efficient. Fourth is healthcare planning, whether that's long-term care alternatives, Medicare or Medicare supplement conversations. I can't tell you how many folks come to PFS and their current financial advisor has not had one conversation with them about Medicare supplements, long-term care, or long-term care alternatives that exist. And finally, the 5th pillar of this planning process is legacy and estate planning. And I'd like to say that's where I'm fortunate and blessed to have you as part of our repertoire to help our clients in that area, because a lot of folks don't plan on it, or they have a plan, a will or a trust that's been witnessed, or that's with a previous spouse. The circumstances are endless. So I would say that that's part of the misconception. Basically, is that individuals bundle every financial advisor into that one category, but in reality, there's 3 separate aspects of who a financial advisor is and the value that they bring to the table.
And I imagine you touch on some of that in your book, right?
And then some, yeah. So we talk about that in the book, as well as some other things, of course. Yeah.
So how has your philosophy over money evolved over time?
Well, it has. The way it's evolved is purely by the value that our firm brings to our clients' financial and legacy needs. So, again, we were when I entered this industry. I not only as an investor was in that bottom echelon of the pyramid, but also the services that I offered were solely in that bottom echelon of the pyramid. So, in essence, over time, PFS and the services we bring as an organization has evolved to ultimately now being in the top corner, the tippy top of the pyramid, where truly I believe less than 1% of comprehensive and holistic financial advisory firms serve their clients.
Well, so if you're talking to a broader demographic, people that may have income and assets from not the lowest end, but the one bottom threshold to a real high threshold, what mindset should people adopt for long-term peace of mind?
Well, here's the one thing I will tell anyone that wants to hear me is don't be overwhelmed and intimidated by our industry and what we do. It's not the boogeyman. I think the most important component of financial services and as a financial advisory firm is the fact that our job primarily is to provide absolute clarity to our prospective clients. And again, my dad, as I mentioned earlier, was a contractor, and I use a lot of construction contractor analogies. And what I'll tell you is that ultimately our responsibility, at least at our firm, is when we sit down with a prospective client to determine whether or not they're going to be a good fit, is like you going in and interviewing an architect to design your dream home. And that's our first responsibility, is to make sure that we and an advisor clearly understands what your concerns are, what your wishes are, what your dreams are. And then based on that, then go and design a blueprint, or at least a draft of a blueprint, of what you had said as a consumer of what you want your financial house to be and how you want your financial house to be designed. I think that's the first step.
So in other words, be open-minded.
Yes.
And have somewhat of a vision for your future before you meet with a financial advisor.
Well, sometimes. And what I'll say is, like, I'm a perfect example. I hate to admit this now on your show, but I have zero understanding of automobile engines. Zero.
That's okay.
And it could be a Fred Flintstone engine for a car for all I know. I just know that I go into a dealership who has a great reputation, who I trust, and I know exactly what it is. Sometimes I don't know what's under the hood, and it's that opportunity when you sit down with a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't know what questions to ask. So and again, I think it's the advisor that is responsible for doing providing the inquiries to really hone in on what the concerns are, why they're actually there. Quite often, sometimes folks come in with a lack of clarity, and it's our job. Again, we also become a psychiatrist or a psychologist, where we have them sit down and just share their problems with us, and it's up to us to be able to extract it and then provide them potential solutions.
So trust is key, which we're about to transition to. But if they don't have a vision, that's okay, because you'll have an open and honest conversation with them and help formulate that vision collectively in the beginning. So when it comes to trust in relationships and finance, how do you build trust in a skeptical environment like the one we live in? Yeah,
well, the media doesn't really help at all. So again, I think it's integrity. I think it's sincerity. I think it's compassion. And it's not just pulling some arbitrary 60-40, 50-50, 80-20 portfolio model off the shelf. It's truly getting to understand the individuals, what their goals are, their family circumstances, what their future goals are. And ultimately, when the good Lord decides to take us, what they want their legacy to be like. So it's not just about numbers. It is really, truly getting to understand what the individual client's goals are while they're on this earth, and eventually when they leave it. And more often than not, these individuals have not had that type of conversation with their financial advisor.
Which may, or at least should, in and of itself, build that trust.
That's exactly.
And eliminate some of that skepticism.
That's exactly
right. How do you foster deeper client relationships?
So we love on our clients. We have, specifically in our organization, we do a lot of client-centric type of events. We have, in our office, we'll have monthly lunch and learns where we'll have individuals, whether estate attorneys or whether physicians or real estate brokers that talk about whatever particular topic. So we always are hosting in-office events within our what we call our Smart Learning Center. In addition, we host prayer breakfast once a month. We have prayer breakfast, and that in itself is very well attended, and we're really proud about that. We do a lot of client-centric events outside of the office. This year, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Southwest Florida, got their first professional soccer team, FC Naples. PFS has been fortunate to be recognized as their financial services firm.
Nice.
So, we are their primary wealth management partner. So we're really happy about that. And we invite our clients, and we'll have client-centric events at the stadium as well. So there's a lot of things we do. Semi-annually, we'll have a halftime report or a New Year report. We'll host a breakfast at the Hilton, as an example,
Okay.
and we'll have clients. And by the way, we also will invite prospective clients that fit our culture and core value, but may not have been ready to come on board with PFS at that time. So we'll stay in constant contact with them.
That's good stuff. Tell me, when it comes to trust and relationships and finance, share a client story that really stuck with you.
Well, this is going to have to be hypothetical for compliance purposes.
Sure,
so,
you don't have to give any names
Yeah.
or try to hide the innocent.
Well, I'll just put it this way. Is that it's amazing that whether a prospective client comes in with a lot of investable assets or very little, the one thing that they all fear is not having enough to last their lifetime. And a lot of it has to do with our upbringing. If you're the product of Depression era babies, it's ingrained in you. And no matter how much you have, the one thing that you're always worried about is whether I'm going to have enough to last my lifetime. And ultimately, that's where I think we've brought on the greatest value. I'll share with you a hypothetical story, our Dr. Mark story, I guess, which my compliance department won't have an issue with because we use it in our workshops.
Okay.
But Dr. Mark, he had attended one of our live events, and he was still is an anesthesiologist for a medical group, and this medical group did wonderful things. They basically performed life-saving procedures on children. And when we met, he had been working with one of what I kind of politely call the usual suspects, one of the institutional firms. And no disrespect to them, I've got friends and family that work at some of the usual institutional firms. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Dr. Mark had raised an eyebrow on Dr. Mark is he had no idea whether he had sustainable and reliable income to last both him and his wife's life. He had no idea of the amount of risk he was taking on with his investments. He had no idea how much he was paying in fees as it pertained to his investments. And this goes separate from the respective advisor's fees. And then the potential taxation on those investments by making wrong decisions or poor planning. So through our smart approach planning process, what we've been able to do, for Dr. Mark is provide him absolute clarity as to where he was with his current investment scenario, and then present to him our smart approach plan where we provided him clarity as to what sustainable and reliable income looked like. We provided him clarity as to what fee and risk-efficient investment planning would look like. We provided him with guidance on tax-efficient planning. We provided him with guidance on, he was still young, so he was still years away from Medicare, but we talked about long-term care supplement planning. And then finally, estate and legacy planning. He is so busy focusing on saving lives and leaving it in the hands of an advisor that was only able to focus on one of the 5 pillars of service. Remember what we talked about with the pyramid?
Yeah.
His advisor, no matter how good he was, could only focus on that second level of the pyramid. They just did not have the resources. And we were fortunate and blessed to help Dr. Mark.
Thank you for sharing that story with us. So when it comes to purposeful planning, how does purpose play into planning?
Yeah, so purpose from a gospel standpoint, you mean? Or
Well, everybody has a different purpose in their life. So it could be their purpose on this earth or their purpose for trying to have enough income, whether it's pursue their passions, retirement, travel, take care of children, leave a lasting legacy. So just think real broad here.
Well, so I would just tell you this, is that each individual and each individual's circumstances are going to be unique to the next. I mean, your circumstances, your family goals are going to be different than mine and what we want to aspire. And again, using the construction or home analogy, our job, our mission as an advisory firm is to hone in specifically on what the client's goals and objectives are, what their purpose in life is, and ultimately custom design, custom build, and then custom manage that particular prospective client's goals and objectives. So I'd say, too often we come across individuals that what we lovely like to call DIYers, do-it-yourselfs, where they manage their own stock portfolios. And
tell me more about this, because I think I'm fitting into that category where I like to D-it-M myself.
Well, here's what I'll say is that there is potentially a time and place for a DIYer to do that. There comes a point in one's life where you have to really quantify what's the time value of what's my hourly rate, right? We all have our hourly rates in our industry, and then individuals outside of our industry have to look at their time from a rate perspective. And then you just kind of quantify. But as we get older, there's so much of life that is just passing you by that you just can't get back.
Right.
And that's kind of where we coach individuals into having a better clarity as your children start to get older, as then all of a sudden you start having grandchildren. There's so much that goes on in one's life that as a DIYer, there comes a point where you say to yourself, I've got to humble myself to let go of the reins and put it in the hands of a trusting financial advisory firm that understands my goals, understands my family needs. Because here's the other thing, I'm going to give you a statistic, is over 99% of clients that I've onboarded myself personally, of the 99% of individuals that have worked with me, the spouse that managed the finances in the household was the first one to go. And ironically, the surviving spouse had no clue of how and where to pick up the pieces. I kind of joke about it because my wife handles the checkbook, so I think I'm safe. But the sad reality is, I can't tell you how often we come across individuals that primarily DIYers that are control freaks, and the surviving spouse or the other significant other has no clues, left it up to him or her, and then it turns out 99% of the time, at least for me, they're the ones that pass away, and the surviving spouse has no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, so coincidence, maybe, but I can tell you I've come across that as well, and it's not just the one that's older that dies first.
Doesn't matter.
In many cases.
Doesn't
matter. Could be young before their years. Well, how do you connect wealth to values and legacy?
Well, here again, I always say it's not necessarily all about the wealth or the finances, but I truly believe that, I'm a belief that money is not the root of all evils. I believe that money in the right hands has the incredible, extraordinary power to do incredible, extraordinary things in the world. And I don't want to say that here too, we help folks kind of determine that, but when we're able to provide our clients with clarity as to where they are and how they can get to their goals, then we're also able to work with them about determining what is important to them. Is it a charity? Is it an organization? And through that, we try to do our best to to hopefully bring value so they can spend far more time on those passions and less time on their investments and their finances.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So over all the years, what do you wish more people knew sooner about finance?
Well, again, that it's not the boogeyman, that our industry isn't complicated, but it is complex in the sense that there's so much that an advisory office can provide to you. So I would just say that the one thing I'll say is we're not all created equally. And again, I go back
Shocker.
I go back. Well, from a value standpoint, a culture standpoint,
right.
but also from a services standpoint. And again, I go back to my pyramid, that as you mature as an individual, then you kind of move up that pyramid So yeah, I would just tell you that in that regard, that's one of the biggest differences between us as an holistic, more comprehensive, independent firm and versus the institutional firms. If I had to give you an example, we can use Mount Everest, and it's something I share in my public presentations. You know, you can look at Mount Everest as similarly to our lives at work, and the climb up the mountain is typically for most individuals the years that we're working and that we're contributing to a retirement plan, whether a personal plan or an employer plan. And at some point, you're going to reach the summit. God willing, you're going to reach that summit. And that summit ultimately, Mount Everest and in life, is retirement. And at that point, you can't live at the summit of Mount Everest for very long. At some point, you have to make your way back down Mount Everest. So Mount Everest, on your way down, the climb up is the accumulation phase, and that's where you're saving, and then you reach the summit, and then you make your way down, and that's your retirement phase. Statistically, more people die coming down Mount Everest than they do going up. Why? Because all of our adrenaline, all of our energy has been so focused to saving for retirement, i.e. the summit, that we pay so little attention to the walk down or the distribution phase and the walk down that's where people stumble, that's where people die, and that's where people crash. And I would just say here too, I think the difference between the institutional firms that are focused solely on the accumulation phase, our firm focuses far more on the distribution phase and the walk to make it as safe as possible.
And I was thinking descent, since you used the mountain analogy, but I think that's a real good analogy because we don't think about what comes after retirement. I mean, it's easy to say, I just want to make sure I have enough money for a comfortable lifestyle, but it's harder to articulate what that actually looks like.
That's exactly right. Again, most people don't focus on it.
And when you're focusing on climbing the mountain, using your example, you're figuring out how you're going to reach the top, and you're just like, well, once I get there, I'll just go down. But you're not thinking as meticulously how to make it down because you would think it's easier to go down than it is to go up. So how hard can it be once you make it to the top?
Yeah, that is the problem, and that's the biggest misconception. And again, I think that's the biggest differentiation between advisory firms that are independent and more holistic and comprehensive versus the institutional. For better or worse, they're focused on the way up. Very rarely do you have a 5-pillar organization that focuses on the way down.
So right now we're in a volatile market. Would you agree with that?
There is let's just put it mildly, that there is quite instability in the world. There is some instability in the world.
So how do you help clients stay calm in uncertainty?
So it starts with clarity right up front. And one of the key things that I tell my advisors is their responsibility is to eliminate fear in our clients' lives. One of the last things, and I'm fanatical about it, just in life in general, that I want to make every person that is a part of my life, I want to make their lives as simple and as low pressure as possible. It's kind of one of my OCDs. And we've kind of translated that into our firm. And I could tell you, we can look at the last 2 market, quote unquote, hiccups in the last 20 years. And maybe a handful of clients would call up in a panic, if any, because almost all of our clients had absolute clarity as to where their plan is, what the plan is, the amount of risk that was being taken, and more importantly, how we've been able to protect certain areas from the volatility of areas that are typical of the market. So I will tell you that we, to the best of our ability, eliminate the concern for fear just purely by the services and the diversification that we bring to the table for our clients.
Are there any rules of thumb that you often repeat? Well, when you're walking your person through not living in fear and uncertainty when it comes to market volatility and their nest egg, what rules of thumb do you often is recurring in each of those conversations the approach that you take?
So we just go back to the original plan. We go back to the blueprint. We always revert back. Remember, we're not winging it. We've got a blueprint that we've laid out. And what we do is we focus on, kind of a historical look back of 20 years. And, in the last 20 years, there's a lot that's happened that we can't predict the future. But what I'll say is that for the most part, most of our clients, if there's ever an ounce of uncertainty, we bring them back to the original plan, the blueprint. They're living in a solid home that was designed with an extraordinary foundation. And so we always bring them back to the original plan whenever doubt creeps in.
Well, I could see, we're all human. And when I use this analogy with buyers and sellers of real estate, since we do real estate transactions, we're able to maintain an objective voice. Mm-hmm. Whereas when the buyer and the seller, they're going to be emotionally attached to it, just like the client of yours is going to be emotionally attached to the wealth and the lifestyle and that sort of thing. So you're able to maintain the objectivity by, once you create the plan, stick with it. They veer off course going down the fear route. Let's say they watch the news for too long, and then they come to you panicking because they're watching CNBC, CNN, and Fox simultaneously. And then they talk to their friend, and it's just the fear. There's a lot of fear mongering going on out there. So you bring them back down.
And by the way, on the flip side, we also have the greed issue. Just as equal as the fear, we have the greed issue. And I tell folks, if you don't mind, I'll share. It's like I love using analogies, but most of our ideal clients, they're pre-retirees, retirees. But I personally don't like going to Six Flags, and I cannot get on any of their roller coasters because I get nauseous.
Okay.
And speaking of the news stations and the media, for individuals at this stage of the game, primarily, it's like trying to, when incorporating fear and greed, it's like trying to get off one of these Six Flag roller coasters as it's moving. It's inconceivable you're going to get off and still be alive. So I would just tell you that too plays into it. Again, how we extract and how we eliminate that whole fear, but also eliminate that whole greed aspect as well. It's unsustainable to, and at this point, again, focusing on our typical ideal client, who at this stage of their lives wants to get on and off a Six Flag roller coaster as it's moving?
Yeah, probably no one in their right mind, but that's a good way to picture it, that the market's being volatile. The volatility of the markets create that risk, and once you're on, don't try to hop off mid-ride.
That's right.
Stick to the plan. Well, in terms of the human side of wealth, what do you love most about your work?
Well, again, I personally, now my role in the organization has transformed greatly, where I'm focused more on leading my team. I'm focused more on strategic planning than working in the business. But so I personally love coaching, guiding, and motivating my team. But we also have a belief in our office that not everyone's going to be a good fit to work with PFS, and that's okay. But one of the rules of engagement we have is that no matter who the individual is that walks in, we want to make sure they walk out with far greater value than they had before we met. And if that's all that happens, then we've done our job. And and again, I just bring it back to my dad, where, if you had, case in point, you had said to me, "Hey, Vince, the back steps in my lanai cracked." And if I had mentioned that to my dad, and if he was still around, he would have come over on a Saturday, fixed it, and not asked for anything other than maybe a glass of water. It's just, again, brought value and didn't really ask for anything in return. So I've instilled a little bit of my dad's philosophical approach to generosity with our team. And I'd like to think that that's where we are as an organization.
Well, based on what I know about you and the team that I've met, I think you're doing a pretty good job.
Appreciate it.
Tell me some of these outside passions that you have. What passions outside work influence how you lead or serve?
Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing it up. So I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but a few years back, I don't mind sharing. I'm 50 now. I'll be 60 in February 2026. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I had the incredible opportunity to do this concept called 75 Hard. I think I'd shared that with you, and it's 75 days of easy, simple but not easy tasks.
Mm-hmm.
It changed. It literally changed my life like it's nobody's business. And it's allowed me to be able to follow and enter a passion of endurance sports. And I've done triathlons, I've done half Ironmans, and just this past April, I completed my first full Ironman.
Wow!
So
I knew it was recent, and I knew it was there, and that's pretty incredible for the first time in your mid 50s.
Late 50s. Late 50s.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're in your late 50s, it's not too late to really hop on that wagon. 75 Hard is very hard. So I can't say I've ever tried it.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Simple to follow, not easy to stick with it.
That's right.
So,
but it's a game changer.
So what
once
was your
you get
time on the marathon? The Ironman.
My first, I was hoping to be somewhere between a 12 and a 14-hour window, just purely where I knew I was. And just for your viewers, if they don't understand an Ironman, what it is, it starts off with a 2.4-mile swim, then transition to an 112-mile bike ride, and then transition there to a full marathon.
And your time is tracked, including the transition period.
And the transition period as well.
There's no pause button.
No pause button. So, I was hoping to be somewhere between 12 to 14 hours for my completion. Turns out I ended up at around 15 hours, partly due to having an incredible spill halfway through my bike portion and cracked my helmet, busted my hand, and then realized I've got to get up, no broken bones, and I still have another 56 miles on the bike. Oh, and another full marathon to go. I got it done, and it was one of the most incredible feelings. I get kind of emotional. I get chills thinking of it when you're ready to cross the finish line, and the announcer says, "Vince Virga, you are an Ironman." I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the slowest. But I've got a lifetime of bragging that I am officially an Ironman.
I've read, I actually recently watched a movie on an airplane about the guy that was trying to do it in 10 minutes, 10 hours.
Yeah.
8, I don't know if it's called B10, he called it. So watching that journey and hearing you go through it, it's not about the time so much. Just finishing it is a very, very challenging feat. So I think 15 hours is a pretty solid time.
Yeah.
Especially with the crash.
Yeah. It's for me, and I'm fanatical. I'm more the journey rather than the destination. I'm fanatical about the journey rather than the destination. And it was the 6 months of training that really weren't the most fun, but I made sure I got it done. And then the day of the event, honestly, it was like my focus was, it's a day at work. I'm just going into work. I may work 10 hours, 11 hours, 12 hours. I may have a 15-hour day. I don't know, but I'm going to make sure I finish and cross that finish line. And honestly, I'll tell you this. I thought that was literally going to be one and done. Literally, as I'm the tail end of the marathon part, I'm thinking to myself, who will want to buy my bike? What am I going to do next? I think I'm going to take up golf. And once I kind of got through the recovery phase, I've signed up for a half Ironman in Augusta in September. I'm doing the New York Marathon in November. I'm also going to be doing a 50-mile trail race in Texas in February. And oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this to you. I actually qualified this coming August. I qualified for the U.S. Nationals Olympic distance triathlon in Wisconsin. So if somehow, by the grace of God, I can finish, say, in the top 3 of my age group, I'll literally qualify for the World Championship and be representing the U.S., I think, in Spain next year.
Wow, no pressure.
And we've got a mutual friend that already does it. So, but no pressure at all. I'll just, I'll go all out on that one. But
well, that's inspiring to me, and hopefully it is to other people listening, because just even me after watching this movie about this guy training for the Ironman, it's somewhat of a full-time job during that training phase.
Yeah, well, it was for the full. It's probably about 20 hours a week that you have to dedicate. And again, I talk about we as humans have a tendency of creating limiting beliefs and, I can't do it. I don't have enough time. My knee hurts and this hurts or that hurts. And I kind of look at it from a cause and effect standpoint. A lot of people that have all these aches and pains, typically that's the effect because you found yourself not working out as often, or not taking care of yourself as you should, not having proper nutrition. So, and then there's that whole age thing. Let me just let your viewers know that I have a gentleman down here in Naples, 71 years young, that will swim together in the Gulf. 71 years young, does full Ironmans, and he actually qualified for his age group for the World Championship in Spain in September of this year. Literally a 71-year-old doing full Ironmans. And then I'll also reference, that's how I got into, just the last thing on the Ironmans, how I got into endurance sports was, as you know, I'm a big student of Tony Robbins and part of his Mastery University. And in one of the events, he talked about Sister Madonna Buter. I would challenge your listeners and viewers to go on YouTube and look up Sister Madonna Buter. Small, 5-foot-tall Catholic nun that has done full Ironmans and is qualified for Kona, which is kind of the World Series.
Does she dress like a nun going down the?
No, she doesn't.
Okay.
She doesn't. She doesn't go in the ocean in her nun garb. So she's wearing her tri-suit.
Well, thanks. That's really inspiring stuff. We're going to shift to, as we wrap up here, some rapid fire questions.
I'll do my best.
So what's one underrated financial tip?
Financial tip. So I would just say, don't think that every financial advisor is the same. So I would just say no financial advisor or financial advisors are not all created equally.
Okay. And it's underrated. So what's something people misunderstand about you?
Me, I can tell you I'm an open book. There's pretty much nothing anyone. I always challenge myself, and I like challenging others. So I don't think there's anything that shocks people with what I do or what I say. So I'd tell you there's nothing. People like, oh, okay, Vince is doing another one of these, or oh, Vince is doing that. No big deal. So
well, they say you can't or judge a book by its cover. So maybe it's someone that doesn't know you well. Is there something that they come and misunderstand about you before they get to know you as your open book?
No, I'm just a sweetheart. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah.
All right. Well, so all right. So here's one. What's one thing you've changed your mind about recently?
Well, here's what I'll tell you is, I know it's rapid fire, but I'm going to just say that what I've made it an imperative in my life is to have absolute clarity in what it is that I want, to the point where all 5 senses have to be a part of it.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So, one of the things that I do is I motivate my team. We create vision boards, and vision boards are important, but it's only part of the equation. So I would just say that, so in that regard, I think that's where the biggest part of it is, again, where we create these visions, but we can't. A perfect example. On my vision board, I had this beautiful home. Pictures of the home.
Right.
And ultimately what I realized was I wasn't using all 5 senses. I was looking at that home from the outside. I didn't visualize myself and my feet feeling the tile or feeling the carpet or smelling the paint or jumping in the pool, whatever it may be. I think what's important for your viewers to understand is that if they have a dream, if they have a vision, it can't be solely from viewing it from the outside. You have to use all your senses as if you're living and feeling and breathing it as if it's already happening. I think that has been the most monumental thing for me, is to hone in on that aspect that has had a big impact on my life, my family's life, my team's life, as well as my clients' lives.
All right, finish this sentence.
Yes, sir.
Money is
not the root of all evil if utilized properly and for good causes. I would tell you there's plenty of individuals that have done extraordinary things. And I think as we live on this earth, I think it's important that when we're fortunate and blessed and God blesses us with wealth and abundance, I think we need to do far more for others. First and foremost, do far more for others first.
I love how you finished it and said what money is not.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
So, all right, where can people connect with you, Vince?
Well, they can visit our website, pfswealthgroup.com. And I'd say also I have a separate blog page, vincentaverga.com, that I create and post blogs periodically. And it's a great way for if anyone that wants to communicate or reach out to me on either platform, you can reach out on the contact us sections.
So is that how they'd get a copy of this book?
Absolutely.
Smart Approach?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So final takeaway. If listeners remember one thing, what should it be?
Be good. Don't be influenced by the media. Continue on your journey. Have clarity as to what it is that you want. Have specificity as to what it is that you want. Don't wing it in life and in business and in relationships. I would just say have clarity and use all five senses for whatever dream you have, because in the Ironman universe, they have their saying is anything is possible. Mm-hmm. I actually think everything is possible is far greater. Anything is kind of vague, but everything is specific. So I would just say everything is possible with the right belief system.
All right, I like that. We're going to run with it. The final takeaway is everything is possible with the right belief system. All right, well, thanks, Vince.
Holy cow, thanks very much, Matt. Appreciate it.
Until next time.